Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for May 29th through June 4th, 2023. We are bridging the months of May and June this week. We are still in Gemini season, and predominantly it's Gemini season that takes us through the month of May. So for those that are celebrating birthdays, happy birthday, not just this week, but this whole season. And Gemini is a sign that teaches us about the power of choice, about voice, communication, how we think and listen and learn. And so we've been building our way through the zodiac. We started with Aries. Aries is the first sign. We moved on to Taurus season, got really in touch with the earth, the physicality of life, and here we are learning about air. Gemini is element air. It's about communication, socialization, how we interact and how we think and listen and learn. So it's typically a very, a season with a lot of, let's say, animation, a lot of movement. Things are happening. So we are still, Mercury governs Gemini season. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini season, and it's still back in Taurus. I say back because we did have a Mercury retrograde back in May, and so we're still wrapping up that time. Even though Mercury is direct, we have to still deliberate. We still have to, not sort of rush to a choice. We have to think a little bit intuitively. We have to listen to our gut. We have to sort of reflect. But yeah, here we are. I know it's a holiday here in the United States, so if you are sort of celebrating the holiday, and it's not really, I guess, something that you celebrate because it's a memorial, yeah, a lot of significance to this day for those that know that it is Memorial Day weekend, and for those that are not in the U.S., I hope you all are having a great start to your week. So it's typically a 3-day weekend here in the U.S. and the start of the summer holiday. So anyway, my name is Katie Sweetman. I am an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area, and every week we gather live to look at the astrology. And you hear me say it over and over again, the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. That's the thing. Astrology is a metric for time, how we experience time, sort of the cadence of time. Time is really at the movement of the lunar cycles of Saturn. These are the two main drivers of time in our lives, and how we sort of experience time from a very symbolic, metaphoric, seasonal way. And then there's you. And so astrology doesn't necessarily measure your self-awareness. It doesn't measure what you're going to decide. And so our work is to allow the astrology to reveal something inside of us so that we can start to perceive our world around us differently and maybe make different choices, or use the astrology to work on ourselves, to open up. Because I think the beauty of astrology, and particularly the beauty of the zodiac, and kind of alluded to this a few moments ago when I was talking about Gemini, is that it's a path. It is a path of discovery. It is the wheel of life. And so we started this journey together when the sun arrived in Aries way back, I believe it was March 20th, and we were going to walk this path all the way to the end of the zodiac when we reach the end of Pisces season. But we're still at the beginning. We're still gathering information. We're sort of looking at things differently, and we sort of take into account that the universe is sort of giving us different tools to play with, but also saying maybe go back and look at the past. That's why I was saying that Mercury is still in Taurus. So what do we got going on this week? In terms of just things happening, it is a week that is light on aspects, but we do have two major things happening. Number one is the Sagittarius full moon. It happens at the end of this week on June 3rd for June 4th for most of the people in the beyond the northern or beyond the East Coast of the United States where I am. And then we also have Mercury, speaking of Mercury and Taurus, finally meeting up with Uranus. And so I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, let's talk about Sagittarius. And you're like, why are we talking about Sagittarius? Well, we do have the Sagittarius full moon later this week. It will be at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. It will be on June 3rd at 11, I believe it's 11:41 p.m. for those here on the East Coast of the United States or in Eastern time. If you are, UK, even to our friends in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia and New Zealand, will be on June 4th. I'll say tomorrow, but we're not there yet. And speaking of which, yes, maybe you're watching this, and I was talking to a client last week. She's like, yes, I'm one of the Tuesday people. I watch you on Tuesday. I get it. You watch me in the morning, or you listen to me on Tuesday, or it is Tuesday right now, because we are truly a global audience. Speaking of Sagittarius, Sagittarius is a sign that opens up our eyes to the world. And I'm going to stress this over and over again, if I haven't already. You are all 12 signs of the zodiac. You're like, but Katie, I'm not a Sagittarius, or I have the sun in Gemini, or I have the sun in Scorpio, or this or that. You have all 12 signs in your astrology, and you have a varying relationship with each of those 12 signs. And when somebody says to me, I don't like fill in the blank sign, I'm like, there's some deeper material to work with when there's a sign that we don't like, because it talks about this journey through life and an archetype, and it's maybe a fundamental archetype that we have a problem with. So here we are at a season that is trying to, give us new ideas, to give us new perspectives, Gemini, but on the other side of the zodiac is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius forms the complement to Gemini. It is part of a polarity of signs. Sometimes people will say that Sagittarius opposes Gemini, which on some level is true, but don't use that as a metric of like oppose means bad. It just means two halves of a whole. And so, yes, you are all 12 signs of the zodiac. So what is your relationship with Sagittarius? And you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know any Sagittariuses, but Sagittarius is a part of your chart. When I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs at the end, you'll know exactly where Sagittarius is in your life and what area that governs. But on a broader level, Sagittarius, it's ruled by Jupiter, it's governed by Jupiter. And Sagittarius as a sign opens up our eyes to the world. And so we can just live in our little teeny tiny world, and that is absolutely our choice. Or maybe we want more. We want to travel. We want to experience new things. We want to try new flavors. We want to see different countries. We want to seek and explore different viewpoints or different ways of thinking, different philosophies, different faiths. And so with the motivation and inspiration from Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, it's the last fire sign. There are, maybe for those that don't even know, each of the zodiac signs, it's either a fire, earth, air, or water sign. There are 4 elements in astrology, and then there are 3 signs per element. It's called a triplicity. And so the triplicity of fire, and I'm throwing big words at you, but it's Sagittarius full moon later this week. The triplicity of fire is Aries, Leo, and Sag. And the fire of Aries is that very raw spark of life, that raw spark of motivation. We get to Leo, and it's the spark of the sun. Leo is governed by the sun, and it's the light that shines within us, the light for us to share with others. It is their individuality. And we get to Sagittarius, and that fire becomes the flame of wisdom. Knowledge becomes the light of the heavens, and that energy is meant to reveal something. It's meant to open up our eyes. And I realize that statement, there's a literalness to that statement, but there's actually a deeper meaning to that statement. It's why Sagittarius is the sign of religion. It's the sign of truth and faith and meaning. And this isn't a comment about religion. It's just to say that it exists within the framework of Sagittarius as a sign. But I think on some sort of basic level, we all need to figure out what we believe in, what we stand for, what we think is true, even if it's a complete 180 from how we were raised or sort of our cultural traditions or even our religious traditions. But Sagittarius tries to help us to make sense of the world. The idea is to keep our eyes open. Every sign of the zodiac has a sort of a shadow to it or a trap to it, and the trap of Sagittarius, and like I said, every sign has a trap, not picking on Sag, is when we think we're right, and when we always think we're right, And then the sort of the shadow of Sagittarius is when we sort of keep our vision very narrow. It's like, this is the only way. It's capital T truth, Sagittarius. We've met those forms of Sagittarius. This is the only way it can happen. But I think there's the other side of Sagittarius, a very beautiful side, and it picks up on the curiosity of Gemini, and it wants to see all the different perspectives. That they're sort of is fed and nourished by all the different permutations of things in the world. And if you know a Sagittarius, they always seem to be going someplace or traveling someplace in a different country. And so that's why, you know, for me, I have Sagittarius rising, and so I'm like, where are you all located? I'm gonna travel vicariously through each and every one of you. And so yes, I'm here in the United States, but I know some of you are in Spain, or you're in Australia, or you're in Scandinavia, or you're even in South Africa, for example. And so that's pretty wild. But yeah, here we are. We gather every week. So yeah, if you have a birthday on June 3rd, plus or minus a couple of days, it is a dynamic birthday. It's a dynamic new year. If your birthday is on the opposite end of the sky, I believe it's plus or minus, you know, December 4th, plus or minus a few days, it's putting the spotlight on you. So even though it's Gemini season, some Sag who's born around the 4th of December, plus or minus, is getting the full moon. And so if you're having the full moon this week, and you're Sagittarius, can't speak. If you're a Sagittarius, yeah, it's a dynamic time for you. You're in the spotlight. You know, maybe there are events happening in your life. And that's the thing about the lunar cycle, is that it makes things happen. Pay attention. New moon, 2 weeks later, full moon. Pay attention to what's happening at the quarter moon, first quarter, last quarter. Then we have eclipses. Eclipses are just a new moon or full moon that happens to be in alignment with the nodes. And so maybe that's a good segue to the fact that Jupiter this week, Jupiter is over in Taurus. So if you remember, to much fanfare, Jupiter went to Taurus on May 16th. I say fanfare because sometimes people get really excited. Okay, me too. But people get really excited when Jupiter goes into a sign where it's like, oh, richness, abundance, Taurus, pleasure. Yes. But you know, Jupiter can show us both sides of things. That's why I'm a little bit, even though I'm Sag rising, maybe it's all the Saturn in my chart, I'm a little pragmatic when it comes to Jupiter. Jupiter can definitely come in a clutch, as they say. It gives us grace. It gives us a sense of worldliness and sort of that faith that everything is going to be okay. And maybe that is where Jupiter really does serve each and every one of us well. So yeah, Jupiter will meet up with the north node of the moon, the north node and the south node, these 2 points in the sky, they make eclipses happen. And so sort of your friendly reminder that by July, I don't remember the date, but in July, the nodes will switch and they will go into Aries and Libra for the next 18 months. So we are wrapping up a story that began at the end of 2021 and even in January 2022 when the nodes changed signs and went into Taurus and Scorpio. So anytime a planet connects with the lunar nodes, we get a bump of eclipse energy. So just sort of pay attention later this week, you know, as Jupiter meets up with the nodes. What's happening? What are these bigger questions around faith and truth, meaning, conviction, philosophy? You know, what really inspires and motivates you? And I think even if you're not a Sagittarius, but sort of my general comment is like a Sag that doesn't have a sense of mission is a very sad Sag. They feel like they're missing something. So I think on some level this week we need to figure out what our mission is. Maybe that's a big statement, but Jupiter is a big planet. Sagittarius is a big sign. And then, you know, then there's Saturn. Saturn's going to be really, you know, kind of running parallel to a lot of our experiences this week. We just came off of Sun's square Saturn yesterday, but that full moon puts the energy of Saturn into like the events around the full moon. And so we have decisions to make. We need to set boundaries. We need to take the next step up. We need to lead. We need to be the adult in the room. We need to think about our goals and our duties and our responsibilities. And Saturn really talks about the things that we are building and becoming. I know Saturn has a reputation in astrology, but if you've been listening to me as long as you have, you know that I love Saturn. I think Saturn is just does not get its fair due. And astrology, it's limitations, yes, but sometimes things take time. And that's the thing about Saturn. Things take time. So look for Saturn this week. Look for where you need to really honor your commitments, where you need to define what you believe in, what you stand for. What is your relationship with truth? Do you need to stand up for what you believe in? Where is Saturn really pressing upon you to do the right thing, to have integrity, to have conviction, for example? And then we're going to get into later this week, and we do have that Mercury conjunct Uranus, but really see where there's maybe some elements of information coming out of left field, or sort of an unexpected point of view, or you maybe a conversation that illuminates or maybe even makes you go in a new direction. So those are our bigger points for this week. Let's look at the astrology of this week, May 29th through June 4th, 2023. So like I said, we're coming into June this week. We're saying goodbye to May. Saying goodbye to eclipse season. I know we did that back with the new moon in Taurus on May 19th, but that energy, it's to sort of see how the eclipses can spill in the coming month after the eclipses. So we start the week and we don't really have any big aspects, so it's really the moon that's driving our experiences. The moon is in Libra for pretty much the first few days of the week. Libra is an air sign, Gemini is an air sign, Aquarius is an air sign, and it's Gemini season, but I mentioned Aquarius because that's what's called the triplicity of air. See, we're learning things today. But Gemini is an air sign, Libra is an air sign, so we're really feeling that air energy as we start the week, and we go into about midweek. It's about socialization, communication, ideas, movement, learning, travel, relationships, for example. Then we get to about the middle of the week. We get to Thursday. I believe that's the 1st of June. And Jupiter meets up with the North Node at 4 degrees of Taurus. And this is sort of like our first big, sort of check-in with Jupiter and Taurus. Jupiter is going to be in Taurus for a year, but it's occupying the same space as Uranus. It won't make that conjunction to Uranus later, but this could be a week that is speaking to, what do I value? What do I need? What do I believe in? What do I think is true? But Taurus is an energy that really, it's a very different sign than Sagittarius. Sagittarius is all about that bigger vision. Taurus is very concrete, for example. So Taurus is really trying to get us to get clear about what do we need? What do we believe in? What are our beliefs about money and material stability, for example? And so maybe it's getting into our deeper beliefs, like, am I safe enough? Do I have enough? For example, but that Jupiter with the nodes, there might be something that really sends us in a different direction, opens up our eyes, gets us to think about faith and truth and meaning in a lot of, kind of bigger ways. And like I said, one of the things I love about Sagittarius is that it opens up our eyes. So allow your eyes to be open, to look outside of yourself. Jupiter is the faith and sort of the knowledge and the wisdom that we discover outside of ourselves. But as I alluded to earlier, we have aspects to Saturn this week. Saturn is in Pisces, and Pisces is the faith that we find within. So there's a bit of an existential thread that's running through our experiences this week. And, if you're sort of feeling the sort of bigger questions, just like, oh yeah, Sagittarius full moon, for example. Then we get into June 3rd for those that are in Europe and Australia and beyond. It will be June 4th, but we have the Sagittarius full moon. And so this will be at 13 degrees. It is picking up on a square to Saturn. And I will add, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, Saturn will turn retrograde on June 17th. So we're going to talk a lot more about Saturn as we get into June, because when Saturn turns retrograde, we really are getting our first concrete, connection, if you can say concrete, with Pisces. But Saturn's been in Pisces since March 7th. And whenever Saturn turns retrograde or direct, these are structural build points for the year. We typically see events, things that have a little bit more of a weight to them, a milestone happening around that station degree. So keep an eye out on what's happening around June 17th, plus or minus however many days. So I already talked about the Sagittarius full moon and a little bit more in depth in terms of the archetype of Sagittarius, but it's just to reiterate, it's a full moon that's putting something into the spotlight. We have to see something. It could be an energy of revelation. It could be getting into these deeper points about what is my mission? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? And sometimes when, a Sagittarius has lost its faith, it's like that can get into really deeper emotional themes, for example. But I think that this is more about, we have to really get clear about some of the bigger structures of our life, philosophical, religious, spiritual, whatever you believe in, and how that's going to really give you a framework for your life. Because this is where Sagittarius, whether it's knowledge, whether it's spirituality, whether it's religion, whether it's philosophy, it's about giving our lives a sense of framework to build around. It's like, well, if this is what's meaningful to me, or this is what's right or true for me, then these are the decisions and the choices that I sort of go along with, for example. And for some people, it's the Sagittarius full moon to really question, like, what do I believe in? Actually, maybe I don't believe in the things that I thought I believed in, for example. Then we get into Sunday, June 4th, and Mercury, which has been sort of putting its way through Taurus, finally reaches Uranus. And so Mercury is the planet that governs voice, communication, ideas, information, how we think and listen and learn. And it's been behind the scenes, like I said, in Taurus. And so we need to really not rush to conclusions, although Mercury conjunct Uranus maybe is quite the opposite. It could be a very impulsive decision, or suddenly see things for what they are, or maybe we receive information or have a conversation that shakes us up or illuminates for us, for example. But that's going to carry into Monday, and I'm sure we will have lots to talk about next week. So let's get into the astrology for each of the 12 signs. Just your friendly reminder to listen for your sun and rising sign. I really believe that it's both. You do you, for example. I'm not going to be hardcore Sagittarius and say it has to be this, but just listen for both and see which one pulls at you more, for example. So let's start with Aries. So Aries, Mars is your planet, and it's in Leo. It's been in Leo for about a week and change. And so for you, this is really pulling you into these fire themes that I was actually talking about earlier. Aries, you are the sign of leadership, of drive, of really kind of going after what you want, your desires. And so to have Mars in Leo, it really kind of gives you a bit of an ego boost. It sort of feels creative. It feels like passion. It feels like joy. Or maybe if you're feeling the opposite, how do you start to tap into that Mars and Leo energy, for example? Then there's Sagittarius, and for you, Sagittarius is your 9th sign. So this is getting into everything that I was talking about in my introduction. Like, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? And with Jupiter in your 2nd sign of money and income, it's not just beliefs, it's really kind of getting into something that's a little bit more concrete. It's like, what's the value of what I believe in? What's it building in my world? What's my relationship with money and sort of my philosophy around money and material stability and security? Every Aries is going to live this differently, of course, but this is where you're really trying to get into these deeper themes about money, income, material stability, and material security that have been with you over the last few years. Don't forget, Aries is that you've been having eclipses in the space of Taurus. You've had Uranus in Taurus since 2018, 2019. And so maybe this full moon in a way is really like opening up your eyes to something, for example. And I will say for those for whom this is relevant, to have a Sag full moon is getting into not just beliefs about money, but just beliefs and truth and meaning And you are in this period, Aries, where Saturn is pulling you behind the scenes. Saturn's in your 12th. It'll be in your 12th for 3 years. And so to feel at the same time like this huge emphasis on your material and physical life, but on the same side of things, or the other side of things, Saturn is pulling you behind the scenes to get into this deeper existential questions. Like, actually, do I need this? And that's the thing also about Saturn and Pisces for you. It's like feeling like some things are beginning to dissolve away, because on some greater level, Aries, you are preparing for a new big chapter of your life over the next few years. Taurus. So Taurus, how are we doing? You've got Jupiter in your sign. Maybe you feel that like a boon. Maybe you feel that like motivation and inspiration. Maybe you feel like that's just shaking things up even more. But that said, it is Sagittarius full moon this week, and it is Gemini season. And Gemini season, just by and large, is one of your money signs. It talks about how you earn a living, what do you need on a material level, material stability and security, for example. That Sagittarius full moon on the other end of things actually may bring in financial themes, financial matters into this coming week. And maybe you have some decisions to make about finances, investments, making sure, something about an estate. I realize that sounds a little grim, but I'm a Scorpio. And maybe some estate planning, financial planning, for example. And for some Tauruses, it is about debt or about taxes, and sort of seeing the things that you have to do in that regards. But then there's the other side of what I call the eighth room. Sagittarius is your 8th sign. And so this is a full moon that's actually pulling upon deeper emotional themes. And sometimes when we have a full moon in this space, we have to face something. We have to face ourselves. We have to go into our deepest emotional parts. We have to look at the hidden motivations, the hidden fears. And maybe these are the hidden motivations and fears behind your ability to move forward, or your ability to take action, or your ability to feel safe and secure in the world. See what is revealed to you. This full moon, again, it's threading right back to you, because the ruler, the planet that governs that full moon, is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in your sign. So what else is going on? Oh, Mercury, which is the other thing that's happening. Mercury is in your sign. So maybe, you sort of have a lot to say this week. And with Mercury meeting up with Taurus, maybe you're making some choices and decisions out of the blue, or something that really reframes something in your life. Gemini. So happy birthday, Gemini. And here you have a full moon. If it's your birthday this week, you have a full moon that's coming into your astrology. So this means that this coming year, especially if your birthday is on the 3rd, plus or minus a couple days, this is a dynamic new year for you, one that may bring something to a head, or might be a year with a lot of major events. I know it's a bit vague, not vague, it's kind of general to say that, because it really depends on the person, but to have a full moon on your birthday puts this coming year in the spotlight in some way for you. So then there's Mercury, and Mercury is your planet. We've been talking about this the past few weeks, and actually more than the past few weeks, but Mercury is behind the scenes. And Mercury has been in Taurus, meaning your planet has been in Taurus since April 4th. That's a long time for Mercury to be in one sign. It typically happens when we have a retrograde, which we did, back in May. That said, maybe you haven't felt like you've been able to move forward, or this birthday season for you is either a little muted, or maybe you just want to kind of spend time alone, or you want to spend time with like a very kind of select group of people. Mercury, it's in a space of retreat right now. So see how that energy is really showing up in your life. That said, you're having a full moon in your relationship sign of Sagittarius. So this is the full moon that could bring a relationship into the spotlight. It could be big R relationship, meaning a major partnership, or even small R relationship, meaning the people that are in and out of your life. But that said, the full moon takes the energy of Jupiter, it's over in Taurus. And so, for some Geminis, this is maybe a relationship that needs to leave your life. Or for some Geminis, it's a relationship that needs to align with your spiritual values. Maybe you've done a lot of soul searching over the past however many weeks, since May, April, and now it's time to put some things really into focus or into the spotlight. For example, Mercury, your planet, will finally meet up with Uranus. See what's happening around the end of the week, of course, that full moon, but how that sort of opens up your eyes, gets you to see things a little bit differently, for example. And then you have Jupiter. Jupiter actually is a major player in your astrology. It is a relationship planet. It's a career planet. It's meeting up with the nodes. And so this could be a week that isn't just about relationships. It could also be about your direction and your future and taking things in a different direction, for example. Cancer. God, I had to think about that for a second. Cancer. So you are preparing for your birthday season. That's the thing. When the sun arrives and, it arrives in Gemini, it means you've come to the end of your personal year. And so it's a time to reflect. It's a time to go behind the scenes. It's a time to recuperate, but also to think about the year that you just had. And what did you learn? What are you bringing with you into the next coming year? What are you leaving behind, for example? I mean, that's really the power of the 8th, is that it really prepares you for the not the 8th, the 12th, it prepares you for the coming year, but it also gives you some space to let things go. That said, that Gemini season, that Sagittarius full moon, it's sort of pulling at both what I call heaven and earth. On one hand, Gemini for you talks about heaven. I put that in air quotes. I mean, the part of your life that is beyond this world, your spirituality, your inner faith, your inner meaning, your dreams. But then that Sagittarius full moon puts your human world into the spotlight. And this is a full moon where you have to really look at health and wellness, your earthly world, your schedules, your responsibilities, your work, your projects. And so how you're seeing that sort of dichotomy between things that are very ethereal, things that are not of this world, but also things that are very kind of present, rooted and grounded for you. For example, Cancer. That said, this full moon points the energy of Jupiter over to Taurus. And for you, Cancer, Taurus is your sign of friends and community. It's about looking ahead towards the future. And so as you sort of let go and prepare for the coming year, and you're doing some soul searching on the other side of things, maybe you're actually also looking towards the future. You're spending times with friends and community, for example. But this is kind of getting into some deeper emotional points for you, and maybe with that Mercury conjunct Uranus later this week on the 4th, this is about opening up to a future that maybe you didn't yet think that you were going to have, for example. Leo, so you got a lot going on in your sign right now because Mars is in your sign. I think it's as of the 20th of May, so just last week. Mars gives you power, drive, and motivation. It gives you a little bit of spark, for example, and how are you using this energy? Do you feel really motivated? Do you feel really jazzed? Do you have a lot of energy? Are you a little bit angry, for example? Sometimes Mars can really bring up our impatience, for example. But that said, you are a fire sign, and so this full moon is really picking up on this fire energy because Sagittarius for you is something called your 5th sign. The 5th sign is the sign that really, in a way, talks about you. It's not you on the level of the individual self. It's you on the level of what's your creativity? What's your passion? What's your individuality? What is your identity, for example? And you have been through a lot lately, Leo, so maybe this is a full moon that's trying to put you, get you back to that spark, that fire, that passion, whatever it is that's really, for example, maybe you are burnt out, you know, or maybe you're not burnt out, Leo, but if you are burnt out, use this full moon to really get back to what lights you up, what gives you joy, what gives you passion, what motivates you, it moves you forward. And because if you're scratching your head right now, Leo, that's the thing. A Leo that's lost its passion, kind of like a Sag that's lost its mission and purpose, it's kind of a sad Leo. So use this full moon to get back to the things that are really important. And I think with this full moon making that square to Saturn, and Saturn is in your 8th, it's trying to bring some stuff up from deep down inside for you to look at and maybe to make some different decisions, for example. But this is a dynamic full moon. It is playing off the energies of Jupiter, and Jupiter is now in your 10th. Your 10th is the sign of career. It's your direction. It's your duties and responsibilities on a worldly level. And every Leo has been living this a bit differently, but I've seen Leos make some big changes in career over the past few years. I see some Leos really poised to make some big changes in career. And so maybe this Jupiter energy is exactly what you need to really go off into the next phase of your professional life. Virgo. So, you know, I've been kind of saying the same thing, Virgo, but that's because your planet Mercury has been spending a lot of time in Taurus, and Taurus for you is something called your 9th sign. So Taurus is the sign that really talks about, well, how do you see the world? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? And so maybe this is coming as you come to the end, because I will say Mercury will finally change signs next week on June 11th. But maybe with Mercury still in Taurus, you're starting to come to the end of this really long story about, like, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? And maybe with this full moon is in Sag, and Sag is one of your major signs. It talks about home and family and sort of the roots and foundation of your life, and also the things that are really important. And so there could be, on a very surface level, a connection between home and family and sort of like the beliefs, or sort of like your direction, what do you stand for. For some people, it's to see the link between the deeper emotionality of their life, their past, their memories, and how that's really shaped what they believe in, and what they stand for, and what they think is true. And I think with Mercury coming up to that conjunction to Uranus this week on June 4th, something may shake you awake, something may illuminate, something may reveal. I mean, that's the beauty of fire energy, is that it wants to reveal something in each and every one of us. You will finally get some new territory on June 11th when Mercury finally returns home to Gemini, in this case, your career sign. But in the meantime, and for those Virgos for whom this is relevant, that Sag full moon may actually talk about a move. It's home, it's family, but it's actually your household, your living situation. And so maybe you're packing up, you're preparing to move, or maybe you're thinking about moving. And maybe for some Virgos, that move is far away because Jupiter is in the sign of foreign travel or long distance travel, for example. Libra. So Gemini is your 9th sign. So this is the season where you're really getting into these bigger strokes of philosophy, truth, meaning. What do I believe in? What do I stand for? Focusing on your education. And for some Libras, this is the time to really share your opinions, or publish a book, or do that motivational speaking, for example. That said, the full moon in Sagittarius, it illuminates something called your 3rd sign of voice and communication. So sometimes, and you see this because you have what's called a reverse chart. You know, typically it's Aries is the first sign, but in your astrology, Libra is the first sign. Libra is the sign that's opposite of Aries. And so this is a full moon where it is about education, or maybe it's about travel, but it's also a full moon where you need to make sure that you are seeing things clearly, or you are getting all the information, or you're keeping your options open. Because that's sometimes when we are really kind of in the 9th, we're like, oh no, this is it. This is my truth. This is my direction. This is where I'm going. But that full moon is really inviting you to see things a little bit differently. with the energy of the full moon pointing towards something called your 8th, it's to look at the hidden motivations, look at the things that you don't typically look at. Maybe, how the past can sometimes get in the way, or sometimes we can even self-sabotage ourselves by getting really blinded by what we believe in, what we think is true. Or maybe it's about getting into that hidden self, that deep self that really shakes up how you see things, or even shakes up the direction that you want to take things in. I will say that Venus, which is your planet, it's starting to wrap up its time in Cancer, your career sign. And, Venus will go into Leo, and I think I mentioned this last week. It'll go into Leo also on June 11th, and it won't leave for a while, not until I think September 4th or something. I might be wrong, I might be off on that, but there's something about early September. Maybe that's when the retrograde ends. But that said, yeah, Venus is going to be in Leo, your 11th sign of friends and community, society and humanity, for a long time, because it's going to be retrograde. So we're going to have lots to talk about over the next few weeks, for example. Scorpio. Oh, and by the way, for the person who is soliciting readings, you are a scammer. So yes, please report. Anyway, that's my little friendly, shout out to the person. By the way, and I'm kind of getting off topic for a second, because this has been happening a lot. It's been happening the last 2 years on Instagram. All this kind of died down a little bit. People cloning my account, pretending to be me. I should have said this at the beginning of the introduction. I will get back to Scorpio in a moment. And now they're doing this on Facebook. So I've gotten a couple of people say like, oh, you have friend requested me and now you're asking for readings. I will never solicit you for readings. And so the person who's doing that right now, they don't have the right intentions. Anyway, let's get to Scorpio, because I'm a Scorpio. Scorpio, so Mars is your planet and Mars is in Leo, and it's, typically it spends about 6 weeks in the sign. And so you're getting that, hit of fire. Leo for you is your career sign. So this is your, the time every 2 years. Yes, 2 years. It takes Mars 2 years to get back to this part of your astrology. So this is what's called a career peak for you. And this takes you into July. And Mars typically is really motivating you. It's motivating you to really, figure out what your desires are professionally. What are your goals? What are your ambitions? Where do you want to sort of send your life in? And this is typically when Mars is in this space, it's a lot of hard work, or it's a lot of things happening in your professional life. And maybe we need to get a little bit more with more things happening in Leo or Leo season to sort of see how that's going to happen. But that said, really focus on your career and your profession right now, because you've got Mars assisting you, or maybe you're feeling like everything, the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But you are on some level right now, Scorpio, in the spotlight, because Leo represents one of the most public places of your astrology. Then there's that Sagittarius full moon. Sagittarius is your second sign of money and income. And so Gemini season and that Sag full moon, it's really getting into money, income, material stability, and material security. Like, do I have enough? Do I need to spend more money and invest more money, get my finances in order, for example? But this full moon is picking up on Jupiter, newly in Taurus, which is your relationship sign. So whether it's you and a partner, you and a big R relationship, such as a romantic partner, a marriage, for example, you're trying to figure out some money things. Do me and my partner have enough? Or me and my partner on the same page, in terms of material matters? Or maybe you and a partner are doing some spending and some investing, property, looking at finances, for example. Or maybe it's getting into self-worth and value. Like, am I valued by my partner, or am I valued by people, for example? And so to see how Jupiter, brings in the element of relationship this week, because Jupiter will spend a year in your relationship sign until May of 2024. So this could be a time when relationships are expanding, growing, there's new opportunities, or maybe something that's existing already needs your attention, because Jupiter is really bringing your attention to it. But that said, Mercury will make a conjunction to Uranus. Mercury has been taking its time and Taurus, your relationship signs, and maybe you're trying to get some information from somebody. Maybe it's something between you and another person. It's been taking a long time, but maybe you'll get your information when Mercury makes that conjunction to Uranus on the 4th of June. Sagittarius, you are in the spotlight this week because you have a full moon at 13 degrees. My dog is snoring. 13 degrees of Sagittarius. So if you're born like around December 4th, plus or minus, you're in the spotlight. So it's typically like things are happening in your life. Events typically will bunch up around a full moon when it's on the sun, or maybe you are in the spotlight. Maybe you're getting attention for something, hopefully for the right things, I'm sure. I will also add that Jupiter, which is the ruler of this full moon, it's in Taurus. Jupiter is your ruling planet, and it's going to be in Taurus for a full year until May of 2024. So this is picking up on a theme that will be with you into next year, and certainly a theme that has been with you since 2018, 2019, when Uranus went into Taurus. So for some of you, this is about health and wellness, taking care of your body, really looking at matters of health, making sure you're eating your vegetables, you're going, getting some exercise, going to the gym, whatever is right for you, of course. For some Sagittariuses, it's about really getting your practical human life in order, making changes, doing things differently. Mercury is in this space. It's kind of in the mix. And so, Mercury is in this space. Mercury is a relationship planet for you. It's also a planet that talks about your career. And so see what's happening when Mercury comes up to that conjunction to Uranus on June 4th. How does that shake things up in a relationship? How does that shake things up in your direction, your career, something about your professional life, something about a partnership or even a professional partnership? It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could just mean like looking at things from a new perspective. But I'm sure we will have lots to talk about as we go into the next week and see what has been the story that comes up with that full moon for you, Sagittarius. Capricorn, just your friendly check-in that Saturn is your planet, and Saturn continues to be in Pisces. Like, how does this feel for you, Capricorn? Because you're typically a sign that's very much about the physicality, the physicality of life, the manifested world. But Pisces is not physical. It's a sign that talks about the non-manifested world. It's our emotions, the things that are beyond our physical reality. Do you feel that energy very intuitively? Is that getting you to sort of feel and to think about things differently? Because Saturn is also in your third sign. And so this is a 3-year period where you're really trying to figure out, like, your voice. How do you speak? How do you listen? How do you learn? And maybe education is a huge focus at the moment. Because it's Pisces, it's like education that needs to sort of feed you on a multitude of levels, not just your material world, but also your emotional and spiritual world as well. That said, Sagittarius, speaking of spiritual world, Sagittarius for you is something called your 12th sign. And so this is a full moon. It typically happens around this time of year where it's about endings. And I know that word is a big word, and not every Capricorn is going to feel this the same way. But for some Capricorns, it is about letting something go. It is about going within, seeing what is important on a spiritual level, what is not important on a material level. For example, this full moon, it does point to what's called your 5th sign. The 5th sign talks about the self, meaning like what makes you you? What are your passions? What are your joys? What's your creativity? What's your identity? And maybe the sense of like your sense of identity at the level of your ego and self, but what is your identity at the level of something beyond this world? And what is true for you? And what is truth? Truth __. But that said, with Jupiter, coming up to the nodes this week, identity, self, who are you? These deeper existential questions, The energy of Saturn is very present in this full moon. And so you've got some bigger questions to answer. And as Mercury makes that conjunction to Uranus, like maybe as you go into the new week, you maybe see things or express yourself differently or define yourself differently. Aquarius, so Saturn is your planet, so it's just your friendly reminder that it's going to spend an awful long time in Pisces until 2026. I know, but this is this period of your life, and that's the thing. When you are governed by Saturn, your life has these sort of 3-year chapters. You had a 3-year chapter from March of 2020 all the way to March 2023. You had a 3-year chapter from the start of 2018 to March of 2020, for example. And so here you are. Pisces is a very different sign than you experienced when Saturn was in Capricorn at 2018, 2019, 2020, but also when it was in Aquarius, 2020, 2021. 2020, 2021, and 2022, because Pisces is very feeling oriented. It's intuitive, it's non-physical, it's the last sign of the zodiac, even though it is your second sign. So you need to make sure that your money and income, your sense of material stability and security, what you value, what you own, that's your second sign, lines up with something spiritual, your spiritual values, for example. And maybe that's a little bit of the soul searching that you're doing. For example, the full moon in Sagittarius puts what's called your 11th sign in the spotlight. This is about friends and community. It's about spending time with friends. Who are my friends? And certainly, I think we can all agree, Saturn in Aquarius over the past few years was a bit brutal on friendships. So who's left? I know it's a kind of a bleak statement to make, but that was kind of what Saturn did. It just deleted people, out of your life, so to speak. So who's left? Who needs to be nurtured? Who is of the real value and worth in your friendships, in your social circle, in your community, for example. And for some Aquariuses, it's about really getting clear about who are my community. Like, how do I spend time in my community? What are the groups that I'm involved in? And for some Aquariuses, it's about really opening up your eyes to these bigger questions, like where's my life going? What's the future that I want, for example? And in Jupiter in Taurus, Taurus is what's called your 4th sign of home and family, roots and foundation. It's about making sure that your future really is constructive to help build your life, to root and to ground you anymore. So this is to see, I will say, Jupiter is in a sign that's seen a lot of shakes over the past couple of years, and Jupiter is on the nodes, and to see if there's any reverberations of eclipse energy this week. Reverberations of eclipse energy means who is coming in and out of your life, what are the opportunities that are coming in and out of your life, what are the doors that are opening, or for some people, the doors that are closing. Finally, Pisces. So Pisces, this is a big full moon for you because Sagittarius is something called your career sign. So you've got these 4 signs in your astrology, Pisces, which is you, Gemini. It's Gemini season, for example. Gemini forms the base of your astrology. It's home, it's family. There's Virgo. There's nothing happening in Virgo at the moment, but Virgo is a relationship sign. And so, absent of Virgo, you've just got a lot of stuff going on in 3 of your big 4 signs. Those big 4 signs talk about the major pillars of your life: family, career, I already said family, relationships. So this might be a full moon that's really hitting on some big points. Now, with Saturn in Pisces, hey, you're a Pisces or a Pisces rising, this might be a full moon that's kind of getting into these bigger Saturnian themes, milestones in your life, taking on more responsibility, becoming Saturn, becoming the parent, becoming the mentor, becoming the authority. And for some Pisces, probably more of a Pisces rising or Pisces sun, it's like, how are you feeling the weight of Saturn? How is it, let's say, diminishing your vitality, and how do you use this full moon to sort of get back to you and really get back your health and vitality, for example? Gemini season, as the other side of this full moon, talks about your home world, but then Sagittarius talks about your professional world. And so this is a full moon where there may be a change in your professional life, a job change, a career, a job offer, a move, a change in positions, for example. If it's not literally about your job, maybe you're in the spotlight in some way. Maybe you feel that you have to take on more responsibilities, or you have to be out there in the world. And with Saturn and Pisces, being out there in the world means the bar is set higher for you. I will say that Sagittarius is a sign of convictions and sort of integrity, and sort of making sure everything lines up with your convictions and your integrity this week as well. That said, Jupiter, which is a major planet in your astrology, it governs you, it governs your career. It's in Taurus, and for you, Taurus is something called your third sign. So this might be a week where it is about career, it is about these bigger questions, and you have to make some choices. Maybe it's not about rushing, to make a choice. For example, Mercury is also down in the space, but those choices might surprise you, because Mercury will make a conjunction to Uranus later this week. It might be a choice that really shifts your direction in life. It might be information that comes out of left field or out of the blue, or something that shakes things up in your professional life. We will see. Every Pisces rising is going to live this differently, but it's certainly a dynamic week for you. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of May 29th through June 4th, 2023. Lots of weird stuff in the comments, so it must be the day, because it's a holiday. But just your friendly reminder that I will never solicit you for a reading. I know many of you actually are my clients, so we already have a direct relationship, and I am very appreciative for those who are my clients. But I will never solicit you for love spells. Like, what the heck is that? Anyway, but block, report, whatever you want to do. Scammers be scamming. But please follow me, and only me, at empoweringastrology.com. You can book a consultation with me. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm also on YouTube, and I'm also on Spotify. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you all next week. Oh, sign up for my newsletter. Anyway, I put a newsletter out first thing every Monday morning. So anyway, there you go. I will see you all. You have Ninja Blocker. I'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.